I am so excited to be here today talking about Sheet Pan Suppers Meatless, which is your new book that's all about creating vegetarian meals all on a sheet pan. Tell me a little bit about the concept of this book, because there have been sheet pan suppers with proteins, but this is kind of the first of the vegetarian kind.
So I really wanted to create a book that showcased not only vegetables on a sheet pan, because roasting vegetables on a sheet pan is nothing new, right?
Yeah.
But also grains and pasta, and really making complete meals on a sheet pan, because I think that's what other books that focus on sheet pan cooking do so well. So I wanted to do the same thing, but keeping things vegetarian. And actually half the recipes in the book, nearly half are vegan, and then about, I would say at least 35 of the recipes of the 100 are gluten-free too. So there's really a wide variety of recipes, from breakfasts and oatmeal to dessert, and then all kinds of savory things in between.
And I think that one of the things that is interesting for people is, as you were saying, everybody knows about roasting vegetables, everybody knows about, okay, you can, put chicken parts, you can do all sorts of things, but I think the idea of doing grains is a little bit surprising for a lot of people. So tell me about the process of kind of figuring out, like, you know what, you can do rice, you can do quinoa, you can do bulgur, as we're gonna do later. How do you do that on a sheet pan without sort of scaring people?
Yeah, so essentially, I wasn't sure if it was gonna work, right? Oh, no one else is doing grain, no one else is making brown rice on a sheet pan.
But why not?
Exactly. And I started playing around just with the regular ratios of grain to water. Like if you're cooking bulgur on the stovetop, it's 2 to 1. So I did the exact same thing on a sheet pan, and it worked beautifully. And it was like such a surprise. It was so nice. And what I love about it is that oven heat is really gentle, and it's a much more forgiving cooking process.
And there's the other thing I think for a lot of people is we're thinking so much about one pot meals, but kind of one pan meals. Is this a good starting point? Even if someone says, well, I'm not a vegetarian, it's like, okay, but you can still stick chicken on a pan, you can still, stick some other protein somewhere else, and then these are kind of those side dishes as well, because a lot of these will work as a full meal, but they'll also work as part of a meal.
Yeah, of course. If you're roasting a chicken and you want to cook some couscous on a sheet pan to make like a really beautiful salad, you could totally do that as well. But the interesting thing that I've discovered, and really it's how myself and my boys and how we eat at home now, is we eat mostly vegetarian. It's just, I find like it's a really nice way to cook healthy meals that are fast and super friendly for the weekdays. It doesn't have to be really complicated.
Right, and I think that's one of the things about this book that's so amazing is you take a lot of things that should feel complicated and you're making them a lot easier. Are there some recipes in particular that you're super proud of to say, like, this sounds complicated, but it actually is so simple?
Yeah, I love all the grain bowls in the book, just because I think it's really cool that you can cook grains on the sheet pan and use the same sheet pan to roast vegetables before you add the grain, and then essentially you're just getting one pan dirty, and within 45 minutes you have a really healthy and delicious bowl of food.
And are there any tips and tricks for people to kind of look out for as they're starting with sheet pan cooking?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously getting the right kind of sheet pan is pretty critical.
So you're gonna make us one of your recipes today that's a grain bowl. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's a bulgur grain bowl. So I decided to make it a very fall, kind of fragrant fall dish.
Awesome. Well, will you take us into the kitchen and show us?
Absolutely. Now we're in the kitchen, and we're gonna get started with the bulgur grain bowl with our Napa cabbage and red onion. So what you wanna do is cut the cabbage into about 1/2 inch wide pieces. So I'm just gonna put this into a bowl and then cut up the red onion. It's sweet, and as it cooks in the oven, it gets really sugary, and it just makes a really nice, savory, sweet flavor. And I'm gonna add 3 tablespoons of olive oil and some salt, just like a 1/2 teaspoon. So just break up your bigger cabbage pieces, toss everything around, just so all the vegetables have a nice little coating of oil, and then turn it on the sheet pan. So I'm just gonna pop this in the oven at 400. It's gonna go for like 25 minutes, and then I'm gonna add the raisins to it and put it back in the oven for 5 minutes so the raisins have a chance to get nice and plump and soft. Okay, so it's been 25 minutes. I added the raisins, and you can see how much it cooked down, a lot. So I'm just gonna transfer this to a clean bowl, and then we're gonna toss this with the bulgur when it's done. Now, I'm not gonna clean the sheet pan before adding the bulgur to it because it has so much nice flavor. So I have 1 cup of bulgur here, And I'm just gonna put it in. I'm gonna add a nice pinch of salt, like a 1/4 teaspoon-ish is good. Give it a little stir. So I'm just going to put the bulgur in the oven. This is 2 cups of boiling water to 1 cup of bulgur. And the cool thing about bulgur is it cooks really quickly. So it's only gonna need like 10 minutes because the bulgur cooks so quickly that even if the oven gets down to like 375, it's not that big of a deal. It doesn't have to be like a super tight seal. I mean, as you can see, this is like loosely folded over. You want it to be tight enough so that the steam doesn't totally escape, but it doesn't have to be like a super tight crimp where you're, risking your fingertips. So the bulgur cooked for 10 minutes in the oven at 350. We pulled it out and let it sit for 10 minutes just to kind of like absorb any liquid that might be left in the pan, and it just continues to get fluffy. And now we're ready to finish the grain bowl. So when you're letting the bulgur rest after you take it out of the oven, just make sure to keep it tented with the foil. But now we can take the foil off. So here's the big reveal. And it's like cooked. And any little shards of onion kind of popped up to the surface. So it's like bonus. And I just, kind of give it a stir, and you could see it's like super fluffy and beautiful. It's not sticking to the pan at all. I'm just gonna return it to the bowl that we were using in the beginning with a little bit of oil in it because I didn't use meat or anything, so there's no reason to even clean the bowl. And then I'm gonna make a very quick vinaigrette to toss with it. Okay, so to make the vinaigrette is 3 tablespoons of olive oil, a nice pinch of salt. I'm using flaky Maldon salt. You could use kosher, you could use sea salt, whatever you like. I'm gonna take the juice of half a lemon, which is approximately 2 tablespoons. So it's so easy with a fork, you can fish out any seeds. I'm gonna add a little squeeze of honey, about 1.5 teaspoons, just to sweeten things up a little bit. A little bit of pepper. Cardamom, because I love it so much. I'm gonna add a 1/2 teaspoon. And you can also grind your own fresh cardamom. It's really nice, just so the whole pod's right in a spice grinder. And then this is whole seed coriander that I like to give a hand grind. It just helps it keep its fresh, lemony, grassy herbaceousness. And I'm just gonna add the same amount, about a 1/2 teaspoon. And then, you don't have to go crazy here. It doesn't have to be like super perfect French restaurant emulsified. Just, together enough. And I'm gonna toss it with the bulgur. And this is a really nice trick. I really like to dress grains instead of the vegetable because the grain is still gonna absorb all of this flavor. So I'm just gonna give this a little stir and then a taste to see if it needs any more salt. And then I'm gonna add like half of the vegetables, and then I'm gonna top the bowl with the other bit just because it'll be pretty. Maybe I use 2/3. So I'm just gonna add some to a bowl. I'm gonna top it with a little bit of extra veg, with the raisins and the nice crispy cabbage. Maybe put like one beautiful crispy bit on top. And then to finish it off, I think crunchy with a grain bowl is really nice. So some toasted almonds on top. You could use pistachios, you could use Marcona almonds, the kind that are fried lightly in olive oil, hazelnuts, any kind of nut you like, sunflower seeds. And that's it, your bulgur grain bowl with roasted cabbage, onions, and toasted almonds from Sheet Pan Suppers Meatless.